Hey folks, welcome to this video. In this video you see my top 3 producing sets on my 2023-24 trapping season. As you could tell from the pictures before the video started, I had a good successful season. My goal was to catch 100 coyotes. I ended up catching 104, and in this video you'll be able to see, I'll break down the sets that I used, how they were effective, and basically the time frame in which they were even effective. I'll go into detail on bait and lure, and I'll also go into detail about how you can keep your sets open during that winter portion, which is my favorite time to be out trapping. So before we get started in this episode, make sure you guys hit the subscribe, turn the bell notifications on, that way you don't miss anything from Jinx. And here we go. Okay, if you guys want to go ahead and skip ahead, I'm going to put the 3 different sets and the numbers on the video of where they're at in order. So the third most productive was the flat set. I'm going to demonstrate a T-bone type set. The second most effective was going to be my cable or cable restraint in my state. If you use snares, the same option. And then the first most productive was my step down dirt hole or a trench style type set. Those are all right here on the side. That way you could skip ahead if you guys want to see those. I will also talk about bait and lure and how to keep your sets open in this video. So you want to watch this in its entirety, but if you do decide you want to skip ahead, you can come back for this for reference. Okay, so I thought I'd go into detail real quick about how I came up with these numbers. I take a very detailed approach to my trapping season. I try to get the best out of my season. Every time I make a set, I use Onyx. I put the pinpoint on there. I put the bait and the lure and the type of set on there. And as I go through my entire season, every time I make a catch, when you can see that in my videos, I always make sure that I log down what day I caught it, where it was at, and that's how I come up with all of these numbers each season. So the reason why I do that is because I want to become the best trapper that I could possibly be. I want to weed out bait and lure that's not working in my area, and I also want to work out and weed out sets that aren't working in my area. Now, consistency will teach me the sets that are working the best for me. Consistency will teach me the bait and the lure that's working for me. And so each season, year after year, I want to use that data to become a better trapper in my area, if that makes sense. Okay, in a nutshell, this is how I broke down the data that I received from my catches throughout the season. I go from regular season till about the breeding season. That's my first era of data. Then I go from the breeding season to about what I call late season. That's my second area of data. And then I have my third area of data, which is beyond that breeding season to the end of the trapping season. All 3 areas. I was really interested this year because a lot of the data was very similar. When I start trapping during the regular season, I don't fight so much the winter, the weather, the freezing temperatures. That's a big factor. The breeding season, they're more distracted. The coyotes are more distracted in the breeding season. So now I'm starting to use different sets during that breeding season. Then the last portion is basically I go back to that first portion of the season, and I'm still incorporating some flat sets as well. So the data that came out was very interesting to me. So I'm gonna give you that information real quick. With those 3 seasons that were kind of compiled, my #1 top producing set still consistently produced all the way through the season. The secondary portion was the breeding season. Now I'm starting to incorporate flat sets. Now I'm starting to incorporate cables. They kind of take a little bit of a back seat to that first set, but it's still a very productive set. And then the third and lastly was my flat type sets, and I'll show you that here, which was still fairly consistent, but I want to hold their attention. So that's pretty much how I came up with these different sets. Okay, here we go, top 3. Number 3 came in at the flat sets, the T-bone. This is a very good productive set to use late season. It's probably my favorite time to use it, mostly because I'm not digging that dirt hole. I can stick that T-bone down mostly as a change up to my top one producer. You just basically put bait in that and it's just to catch those coyotes as they're kind of passing through. It works really well, and here I go demonstrating the T-bone set for you. Okay, so it was a T-bone set. Not a bad looking coyote. Okay guys, I'm gonna show you guys this set. It's a pretty simple set. You take a T-bone off a cow and you use this as a flat set. That'll be also a marker for your backing a little bit. And it's a nice set. On this situation, I'm gonna do a trail, make a trail through the circle. Okay, so this is pretty much how I caught my coyote. Now I still have my catch circle right here. I took a trail and make a trail through there. Try to get him to wanna, they're gonna come to the outer edge. A lot of times they'll circle a time or two before they'll commit to the set. Not always is the case, but I went ahead and made a trail through there. We have a westerly wind, which is what I'm kind of playing off of. Actually the wind's out of the east, I'm sorry. But I put my T-bone back in here and I drive it all the way down into the ground. Now that bone is a good 3-4 inches a lot of times. Use a rebar stake, sometimes that kind of helps guide it. And then the bait will go in that hole in the T-bone. And I usually will put a glandler, which is what I did in this situation, on the backing here, more or less as a walkthrough, if that makes sense. The wind changes the opposite direction. I still have this piece over here that works to my advantage. Generally speaking, the coyotes like to work your set downwind. So if I put 2 placements on the trail, I generally will always have them caught. So okay guys, so that's kind of that set in a nutshell. It works really good, especially you know, if you don't like the dirt holes filling up with water, or you have snow, this is a good set to work in the winter months. Okay, secondly, I caught 22% of my catch of the 104 coyotes came from the cable restraint. This is a cable restraint that we are able to use in my state. Works very effective. You might check your state, make sure you guys are allowed to use those. I happen to like to use the Razorback Snares, their cable restraint. Their information is in the bottom end of the video down below. Very, very effective to use during the breeding portion. They go down the trail. There's no decision making involved in it. Also, when the snow is on the ground, it's super effective to be able to set those. They're quick, they're easy, very, very effective. My staking is about 18 inches in length, and I'm also using a support collar called the pigtail. So very simple, effective set, and here I am going to demonstrate it for you. Okay guys, so the first thing I do is I go and I pick out some weeds without making a trail. I try to keep all my trails intact, but I get myself some weeding material. Okay, so if you watched last year's episodes, man, I caught a lot off of this system. Big, long, nice, long fence row, real brushy. I know that they're hunting this in the winter months, so I've got a trail. It's not real definitive, but it's a good trail. And we're gonna go in a little bit on the outer edge, and we're gonna set that. I usually like to set them here on the end piece, but it kind of breaks right here. So I think if I put one over here on the end, I'll catch there, and then later what I'll do is when I have a catch, I'll just move it down a little bit. So let's get that set. I'll show you how to set these. Okay, one of the first things I always do, now this is just me, is I don't try not to step on the trail, but I put everything off my right foot. So all of my equipment goes on my right foot so I don't lose anything. But that's just, like I said, me. That'll kind of help you, keep you from losing your mind. Because it's really no fun when you get to where you want to set something and then you lose your footing. So I'm just going to kind of go a little bit off the trail, and I want to go as deep as I can with this anchor. I'll get that anchor. Okay, just a few tricks that I like to do. I stay off the trail. I don't make new trails. I'm a stickler when it comes to being on the trail. I do think that lake makes a little bit of a difference, but that's my personal opinion. I have a piece of rebar with a 10-inch marking on it. So in my state, we get 0 entanglements. So my catch area here would be really good for that. And now I'm gonna use my pig support, and I'm gonna make a 10-inch loop, and I'm gonna make it 10 inches off the ground, and I'm gonna center that in the middle of my trail. The only one thing that I like to do, now this is my opinion, and I think it helps make it a little faster, I like either a 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock on my load. So right there is perfect at 10 inches, if you can see that. And then I've got a nice 10-inch loop. It's centered in the middle of the trail. Now all I gotta do is just blend it. This is the fun part. All right, one thing I always try to do is I try to make a big piece on the opposite side. And that kind of helps box him into the trail. Now you can, what they call snow fence this if you want. The main thing on this is that we hide the cable and we hide the snare support or the cable support. There's lots of different, and that's all we're gonna really basically do, is they're gonna brush this in a little better for him so that we don't have what we call a refusal. A refusal is they come to it, they see that there's a cable there, and then they go around it. But I think if the one thing that I don't want to do, and this is just me as well, is I try not to guide over the top of it to where a deer will duck his head. I don't want him ducking. I want him hitting it with his shoulders. So that's pretty good right there. You can see that took me little to no time at all. And I just blend that in. There you go. Now all I gotta do is just hide the hardware at the bottom, and I'll show you the finished product. Okay guys, so here's the finished product. So I'm gonna get off of my trail, try not to make a new trail, and you can just hardly see it. It's blended into that trail, and super effective set. If you could do those in your state, do it. This time of year, that January month, they're moving a lot. They're distracted. You'll find them that go around a lot of your traps, and that gets frustrating. Set a lot of snares and cables if you can do it in your state. Very effective. Okay, real quick, we're gonna take a quick break in the video and talk about bait and lure. One of the most important things as trappers is to find a bait and a lure that works really well for you in your area, if that makes sense. It's not fair of me to be able to promote any one type of bait or lure. I will discuss with you guys what baits and lure have worked for me this season, but the best thing that you could do is to find out something that works well in your area. Another good thing is to go to the bait and lure maker, call them up on the phone, talk to them about how to use their products, the time of year to use their products. It's kind of about like fishing, bait and lure is. Sometimes you got that top water bait that just hits hard. Sometimes you got the soft plastics, and it's just like that with trapping. Sometimes you need to go back to your bait and lure guy and say, hey, what's your top producing bait? What do you recommend? And then try that in your area, see if it works. And that's kind of how you weed out your bait and your lure guys. So from my season, my trapping season, I'm gonna promote a little bit of the product that I used, basically because it was successful for me. Apple Roads Bait and Lure, you'll see that later on in the video. It's a custom blend. I usually buy that by the gallon, works really well for me. Also Marty Smith with Keg Creek, he's also another one that I use. These are both Midwest guys, see, that's in my area. I'll also use Fatal Breath by Lisa Russo. If you can't get that, I know he just recently went out of business, but you'll see that in the video that I use this one here. Another good one that I've been using this last year is from Wolfen Bait and Lures. I'll use his Twister, which is a good call lure, and I also like to use his Sunday Jackpot as well. Those are pretty much my top producers. Another one that I do use in my channel a lot is I use Jason Vance's Final Demise. Now, I will put the information down below this video. If you guys want to use those and purchase those products, that's fine. But find a good bait and a good lure that works well for you. And it's kind of like how much you want to ask your bait and lure guy, how much do you use? Sometimes I think subtle is really important. I also think that you shouldn't over bait or over lure your stuff. Okay guys, I want to take a quick break. We're going to talk a little bit about keeping your sets open. So I'm going to show you guys these sets. When you pull out the bedding material, a lot of times you guys want to trap during the winter portion. That bedding material oftentimes will be wet when you pull that out. Now, if you've got temperature that's freezing, below freezing, you don't want to use that wet material over the top of your bed. I'll show you in this video, if you pay attention, how I'm winterproofing my sets to keep the most amount of days in my sets. So just something to keep in mind. You could use dry dirt. You could use peat moss, dry sifted, which is what I'm using in this video. You could also use wax dirt. Those are all good bedding materials during the winter portions. But one of the things that we fight as trappers is that moisture. So if you kind of do these things, and I'll show you kind of how I do this, and I think it'll help. Okay, now you're coming in at my top producing set location in the 23-24 trapping season. I caught 54% of my coyotes on this one set alone. Regular season, very effective. I was even catching during that winter portion, the breeding season, still doing really well. It was tied for my number 2 producer. And then even that late season, they come right back to this set. I have about 3 different variations. I haven't quite settled into what I feel like is my most favorite. In this video, when I describe it, you'll be able to see how I winterproof this set. But basically, sometimes I will hide a piece of deer hide. I put a nail on that back in that back corner. I'll usually put my call lure on that. That hide kind of holds that lure, if that makes sense. Other than that, you can use a piece of rebar stake at a 90 to create that, and then just kind of wiggle out a hole. You don't have to buy the drill and the auger. Other than that, it's a basic trench style set with a 90-degree hole, and it forces the coyote to kind of step down. What I feel like makes this set so productive in my area is we have those voles that are the mice, the field mice. That's what they create, is that golf ball style hole. So it's already something the coyotes are naturally ready to see. It helps invite them into that set. That's probably why I think that this set is so effective. So I'll show you how I construct that set, and here you go. I've got this guy right here, transitioning off this. I got a secondary set over here. I was really looking to catch a double, but happy to catch at least one on this one. Okay, I'm sorry guys, I just got started. I worked my bed out real good, like normal. I take two handfuls of dry dirt. I throw it on the bottom. And now this is dry dirt you can get underneath a bridge. You know, if it's late, I sift it with my sifter. You could buy these at your trapping supply companies. But I want that dry dirt on the bottom because it packs a little bit better than just straight peat moss. Straight peat moss it's light, it's fluffy, it's got a squeeze to it. It just doesn't bed really well for me. So I like to have a little bit of that dry dirt on the base. It helps me to be able to get my trap bit down. So after I put my dry dirt on the bottom, then I'm gonna put a layer of peat moss that's dry and it's sifted with my sifter. I usually like to do that in the winter months, and that's kind of the basis of things. Now, the points of the trap are the most important to keeping your trap open the longest that you can. So everywhere that this metal hits, especially on the 2 levers, the dog area, all of that's got to have peat moss along the sides, so that it doesn't stick when you get that moisture. So I'm gonna bed my trap like I normally do. There should be a good layer of peat moss all around the metal of the trap. And that's pretty much the gist of it right there. Follow those 2 rules straight out of the box. You should be pretty good to go. I get a week and a half to about 2 weeks on my peat moss. When you buy it in the bales, it'll be wet. So make sure that you dry it out or you put it on a fan. I like to sift mine because it's got all those sticks in it. From here, I'm not even gonna use a pan cover. So I go straight over the top with my peat moss once again. And I'm just adding a layer to my trap. Now from here, I'm gonna make a valley because this is a trench style set. I like my trench style sets. I'm gonna put 2 on the valley here. Pack in the sides as best as I can. Here's my pan. And now after that, that's pretty much about where I wanna be. I don't put anything wet on the top of it because if you put anything wet on the top of it, it'll freeze at night. And that'll create this crust where they step on it and it doesn't fire. So just something to keep in mind. So lastly, what I like to do is I go back to my dry dirt and I add a little layer of dirt just right on the top. That process right there will keep the peat moss from blowing if you have a lot of wind. But just a potato chip, just really, really light layer. Otherwise, once again, you get the moisture, it'll freeze on top, and it won't fire. So pretty much right here is in a nutshell. That's my bed. I'm pretty much done. I'm gonna go, of course, box in the sides, and then I'm gonna bait and lure my hole. Okay, for you guys that like to see the finished set, I like to build a backing back here if I can. Keep him from working it from the back. And then the 2 sides, I want to kind of make it look to where he's got to step down into that pan area. And I usually like this side over here, but I still have to keep in mind I can't put anything wet over that side. And pack down these sides real good. But that's pretty much in a nutshell. I'm going to pull out my glove. All right, my deer hide with the nail goes here. I'm gonna cover that here in a second. Cletus Apple Roads Custom Blend. You gotta buy this by the gallon, guys. Uses double glands. It's good stuff, but it is hard to get. You gotta buy it by the gallon. It's going in the hole. And then I use Fatal Breath by Liesl Rousseau. I use 1 drop. And then I'm going to cover that. I got that on that right there. I'm going to cover that here in a second. I like to cover it. I think it does slow it down a little bit. It makes them look for it. And then I might put a little coyote urine on the side, but I'm pretty busy as it is. I think I probably will though. This right here. That's it. That's my set. One thing that I like to do though is I like to make sure we kind of show the pan a little bit, but I got to pack in these sides real good so that we don't have any unsettling of the dirt. That's just something I like to do. Oh, my urine was right there. And that should have another coyote in it soon. All right, guys, so this is kind of the signature set, just a trench style walkthrough, good location. I've got some skunk with that Fatal Breath. It'll call down into this valley if I'm going this direction. Works really well. So okay, folks, this will be the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Those top 3 producing sets from my 23-24 trapping season. Caught 104 coyotes on those sets alone. Caught a few bobcats along the way as well. I had a great time doing it. And if there was anything in the video that you'd like to purchase, most of my suppliers are in the description down below. When you do call them up, make sure you tell them that Jinx sent you. I think it makes a big difference. Otherwise, on your way out, make sure you hit subscribe. Click the big thumbs up. I'm Jinx. Have a great day.